What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now let's get into it. Khamzat Chimaev doesn't believe Kamaru Usman beat anybody of note. Welterweight champion Kamaru Usman has not lost since 2013 and has had his hand raised in the UFC a total of 15 times. He has yet to lose a fight in the world's biggest promotion and is the #1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter. He's looked every bit of it during all of his title defenses, and he's also about 4 wins away from tying GSP's record for most title defenses in the 170-pound division. But even with all those accolades to his name, surging welterweight prospect, perhaps soon-to-be contender, Khamzat Chimaev doesn't believe that Usman has anything for him. Khamzat has never been shy about sharing his thoughts on MMA, especially when it comes to opponents in his weight class, welterweight or middleweight. And in his latest interview with Daniel Cormier, Khamzat didn't hold back. The Chechen Swede does not believe the hype when it comes to the welterweight champion, and even questions who the guy beat in order to even become the pound-for-pound #1 ranked fighter in the UFC. This is what he said exactly to Cormier about that.
Who he beat last time, bro? He beat the same guy 4 times, like he got beat twice. Colby, he beat twice. The other guy, who he beat, bro? The guys old. Who beat, like Tyron Woodley? He's out from the UFC. After him, 10 guys beat him.
Khamzat is just days away from his biggest test to date, a highly anticipated bout against former title challenger and #2 ranked welterweight Gilbert Burns. The fight is being pipped as a potential #1 contenders bout, so there is a chance that we could see Khamzat fight Usman for the title, provided the Nigerian Nightmare gets past his next opponent, Leon Edwards, sometime later this year. What do you make of Khamzat's comments about Kamaru Usman never fighting anyone of note? Do you agree or disagree? Let us know why or why not in the comments. Dricus Du Plessis not happy about Kelvin Gastelum injury withdrawal. Dricus Du Plessis is not happy about what just happened and is now venting his frustrations out to Ariel Helwani. Du Plessis took on a short notice fight against former middleweight title challenger Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum was originally set to take on Nassourdine Imavov on the UFC 273 card on April 9th, this Saturday. But about 2 weeks ago, Imavov had to withdraw due to visa issues. This is when Gastelum had a choice: either reschedule the Imavov fight for next month's pay-per-view or find a replacement fighter for this month's pay-per-view. He chose the latter, and within 24 hours, the UFC found a replacement fighter in Du Plessis. The South African has won both of his fights in the UFC, both knockouts inside of 2 rounds. He's 16-2 in his MMA career and has been on a roll since 2018, having won 4 straight. Du Plessis also had a fight scheduled against Anthony Hernandez, but he took the Gastelum fight because of the higher-ranked opponent and the fact that he would actually be on a pay-per-view card. Within 24 hours, Du Plessis hopped on a flight to Jacksonville, Florida to prepare for the fight. Gastelum was initially ecstatic to have finally found a replacement fighter, but just a few days later, he too withdrew from the fight due to injury. Du Plessis is livid over Gastelum's withdrawal and believes that the Mexican-American withdrew after seeing tape of Du Plessis. And given that Gastelum has lost 5 of his last 6 fights and badly needs a win, the South African believes Gastelum pulled out because of the degree of difficulty. This is what Du Plessis said while on the MMA Hour this week.
It is his fault. He postponed him. He postponed to cancel the fight. Nobody wants to take a fight on a week's notice. It's hard to take a fight, especially in the UFC on a week's notice. And here Gastelum comes and waits up until a week before the fight to say, no, all of a sudden I'm injured, when he insisted on a new fight. It's frustrating, and it's a bit disrespectful towards opponents and the sport as a whole.
Since this interview, MMA Fighting's John Morgan stated that Kelvin Gastelum will undergo knee surgery next week. Meanwhile, Du Plessis has stated that he's interested in stepping in for the injured Uriah Hall and fight Andre Muniz. What do you think of Du Plessis' comments here? Do you agree with him that it's fishy for Gastelum to insist on fighting on this card only for him to turn around and pull out? Or do you think, give the guy a break, the guy got hurt? This Saturday night, we have a blockbuster main event as Alexander Volkanovski takes on the Korean Zombie at UFC 273. And MyBookie is upping the stakes. Get a deposit bonus on your initial deposit and back Volkanovski or Zombie to win. We are personally going with Khamzat, Yan, and Volkanovski to win their matchups. And if you use our promo code MMAZone, you can get a deposit bonus up to $1,000. It's easy. It only takes a moment to sign up at MyBookie. Use my promo code MMAZone and you'll instantly double your first deposit. With that extra scratch in your account, place a bet on any fight on the card, including what will absolutely be an action-packed main event. Don't miss out. Secure your MyBookie first deposit bonus today by using promo code MMAZone and gear up for UFC 273. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest news from the fight world. Brendan Schaub doesn't understand why the UFC won't simply sign Jake Paul. There's a little bit of confusion on the part of former UFC heavyweight turned podcaster Brendan Schaub as to why the promotion won't simply sign Jake Paul. The YouTuber turned boxer has been fighting more and more challenging opponents with each boxing bout that he takes, and has already knocked out 2 former MMA champions in Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley. Paul has also been able to make a ton of money doing it, and while it remains to be seen when he will ever compete in MMA, he has signaled his interest in cage fighting. Don't forget, Jake Paul is no stranger to wrestling, having done so when he was younger. Of course, he has his boxing, having fought professional fights already, and has aired snippets out on social media of him working on his kicks. While it may not be today, tomorrow, or next week, Jake Paul has stated he plans to transition to MMA at some point, and he's even challenged Conor McGregor for an MMA fight, which many believe will just end up in an injury for Jake Paul. For Schaub, he's thinking about the business of it all, and in his mind, Jake Paul is good business, certainly if you compare him to some other athletes the UFC signed a few years ago. This is what Brendan Schaub had to say.
I don't know what the hesitation is. I would say Jake Paul is more suited to compete in the UFC than CM Punk.
Without a doubt, yeah. And how long is
professional
Conor?
Fights.
So
and again,
do it.
UFC. Conor's going to make all the money in the world. Jake's going to make all the money in the world. It's happening.
It's interesting to note that Bellator's president, Scott Coker, has signaled his interest to sign Jake Paul to the promotion if he ever wants to fight MMA. But what are your thoughts on Schaub's comments here? Do you agree with him? Or do you think the UFC is simply not interested in signing Jake Paul for so many reasons? And in a separate question, do you believe the UFC could one day actually sign Jake Paul? The UFC could be working on setting up tournaments for their flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, and lightweight divisions. According to John Young Ko from the All-Star, he cites multiple sources that say this is happening. In a tweet, he stated, "Multiple sources have informed me that the UFC will have 8-man tournaments across 4 divisions, 125, 135, 145, 155, starting in Singapore during UFC 275 Fight Week." One source said that contracts have gone out to Asian fighters and matchmaking is underway. Each tournament will be across 3 months. Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and Thai fighters already targeted. If true, the format could be interesting. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments. Conor McGregor goes after Henry Cejudo, calls him a little fat novice. With Conor McGregor still recovering from a broken leg injury, he's now getting back into the grind of training, preparing for his eventual return to the cage sometime later this year. In the run-up to that, he's posting different videos of himself training. One video he posted on his Twitter account saw Triple C, former champ and Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo, chime in with some words from McGregor, almost like he's trying to coach him. McGregor posted a video of himself hitting pads and mitts when Cejudo responded to the video with this: "Everything is done naked. No fakes, no feints, no level changes, but you think you're going to get a different result. You work too much on combinations where you should be working entries, setups, and setting traps. Just a tip from the GOAT." Then McGregor fired back with a tweet to Cejudo: "The opening punches are the traps, feints, fakes. You ever hear or see that before? Your little feints won't draw me out, kid, but pump a few real shots, you might get a response. You're a little fat novice with about 2 knockouts. At Bantam, I've 20 across 3 divisions. Quiet, you bum." And finally, Cejudo, in response, stated this: "You literally don't have a leg to stand on. The last time you won a fight, Caitlyn Jenner could still pee standing up." Since his retirement in early 2020, following his defeat of Dominic Cruz, Cejudo has continuously teased that he wants to return for a title fight. but so far, nobody is taking any of the bait in a serious way. Meanwhile, McGregor hasn't fought since July of last year, when he lost his trilogy fight against Dustin Poirier. McGregor is gunning for a return later this year, trying to talk his way into a title fight, despite having lost 3 of his last 4 fights, but he remains the biggest draw in MMA. What do you make of this back and forth between McGregor and Cejudo? Sean O'Malley is not going to corner Petr Yan, says he wants to square up with him. In March, it seemed as though Petr Yan was going to be coached and cornered by Henry Cejudo and Sean O'Malley, but now those plans seem to have changed. Visa issues hit Yan's team, and almost his entire corner was denied entry to the United States. When that happened, both Cejudo and O'Malley verbally agreed to coach Yan for the upcoming UFC 273 bantamweight title unification fight against Aljamain Sterling. But now, it seems as though things have changed, and just a day after Cejudo announced he was no longer on Yan's coaching team, O'Malley followed suit. Case in point, during a recent episode of the Timbo Sugar Show, O'Malley stated this.
Yeah, it wasn't
I don't care if he wins.
Just to watch him warm up, to see how...
Just stare at him the whole time.
Yeah. It'd be a meme.
I like Peter, though. You know? He's a funny little poodle. I want to just square up with him. Just I wish, maybe... I don't know.
This upcoming fight between Yan and Sterling is about 13 months in the making, and is basically a grudge match at this point, given the fact that Yan was DQ'd in their first encounter back at UFC 259 for an illegal knee strike to Sterling's head. Since then, the two have been verbally sparring online. But what do you think about O'Malley and Cejudo no longer being in Yan's corner? And what did you think about them even offering to do so in the first place? Thanks so much for joining us today and catching up on all things MMA. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.